boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
The rehydration clause for Benn versus Eubank. I know a lot of people don't like Benn and Eubank content. I am interested in it though, so we're going to go forward with it and stick with it for a little while. Chris Jr., his dad, is really spooked about the Conor Benn fight. He's really spooked. Chris shouldn't be fighting at 160. But the bottom line is, Jr. is a good fighter. Whether his dad thinks he should be a 168 pounder or if Jr. thinks he'll be stronger at 160 and will have more success there. No world titles have manifested at either weight. And at 34, 35, that means he just hasn't been good enough. He's had the opportunities. He turned down a fight with the unified champion, Eubank. If you're not prepared now to take world titles in your mid-30s, when will he be ready? You just haven't been good enough. I've addressed this already, and some people seem incapable of differentiating between Conor Benn and Chris having a non-title fight and the conditions that go with an actual title fight. They just can't grasp what's going on. A non-title fight is basically a private negotiation between you and your opponent, which will allow you to bring stipulations and clauses which may be harder to put in a title fight with a belt at stake. That should be just stating the obvious. They've agreed to 160. The last time it was 157. They can do that because it's not a title fight, it's not an eliminator. Only thing they're obligated to do under the British Boxing Board of Control rules is they have to weigh in. You have to have a contracted weight for the fight, but that can be whatever they want. They don't have to follow the guidelines or rules of making weight for a title fight. It's two different negotiations. They're not paying no sanctioning fees for a strap. They pay the British Boxing Board of Control for licensing the card and that's it. Whereas the rehydration clause situation with Crawford challenging Canelo is different.
You know, like Eubank comes out, yeah? Like, fuck the rehydration. They won't get one.
Crawford is going to challenge Canelo for sanctioned belts. And to add to that, Canelo is a bona fide A-side fighter. Not one of them fake A-side fighters, a real A-side fighter. So Canelo is an exception to the rule. He's been getting away with a lot of dodgy stuff in sanctioned title fights. His first world title fight was against Matthew Hatton, Ricky's brother. The fight was set at a catch weight limit at 150 for the WBC light middleweight title. And he came in 1 pound over and didn't attempt to lose that pound. And Ricky was threatening to pull Matthew out, but he didn't. Canelo won a 12-round decision. That was his first world title. That was in 2011. When he fought Erislandy Lara in 2016, he didn't even challenge for Erislandy Lara's WBA strap. He made it a non-title fight. They both came in at 155, but we all know that suited Canelo more than it did Lara. And that was his decision to do that, not Lara's. Canelo's the A-side. The middleweight title fight with Khan was at 155. There were better contenders than Amir Khan. For a middleweight title fight, of course there was. Canelo fans would be like, oh, we gave Amir a chance by making the fight at 155. Perhaps. But he was never going to beat Canelo at 155. If they had made that fight at 160, something really bad could have happened in that fight. That's what I'm going to say. Canelo took Sergey Kovalev's 175-pound WBO title and put Sergey on a rehydration clause. Neither could weigh more than 185 pounds the next morning after the Friday weigh-in. He knocked Kovalev out in 11.
Eubank knows, Terence Crawford knows, Canelo Alvarez will go, I'm Canelo Alvarez. Fuck off. I ain't doing a rehydration. Do you want the fight or not? Eubank could have done the same thing. He accepted the rehydration.
Eubank and Terence Crawford, they're not in a position to ask for a rehydration clause. Maybe in some people's opinions, if Canelo wanted to make it look like a more fair fight, he could give Bud a concession on rehydration. But it was Bud who asked for the fight. And I don't want to hear no excuses if Bud gets smashed to pieces. And I want Bud to win. But I don't want to hear no excuses. I won't accept no excuses.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about the potential Canelo-Crawford fight. People talking that you guys don't want a rehydration clause in the event if the fight does happen. Do you guys not want one?
That's on him.
So do you like Terrence's chances even without a rehydration clause?
I love Terrence's chances. When it first came out of his mouth, he said he wanted to fight me.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, you guys have zero issues with.
I have no issue with it.
No issues.
Terrence ain't got an issue with it. I ain't got an issue.
Because, in the past, most guys, when they're fighting bigger guys like that, that's going to be the first thing that they want.
That's some pussy shit. That's some weak shit. Oh, you can't come in this much and shit. Oh, man, get the fuck out of here. It's boxing. You got on the scale, I made the weight, regardless of what I come back as. You accepted the fight, let's get in there and fight like men. Simple as that.
So according to Bo Mack,
That's some pussy shit.
I tell you what though, if Crawford beats Canelo, there's more than likely going to be a rematch clause. And when they've got leverage with this rematch clause, they might, well, stipulate a rehydration clause on Canelo. That would be beautiful. And let's see what they're saying then, when they've got a little more leverage. Right now, they're making sure they're accommodating Canelo's ego, so the fight will likely go through. But you win? What does Scarface say?
This country, you gotta make the money first. Then when you get the money, you get the power. Then when you get the power, then you get the woman.
When Bud Crawford fought EJ, he conceded the lower end of the purse split. He went over to Errol's side of the street. But when they were organising a rematch, Crawford had the option to have it at 147 or 154. We know Errol wanted it at 154. Crawford stuck the knife in and said, nah, bruh, you're going to have to go jogging with bin liners. Yeah, so why wouldn't they do that to Canelo? Back to Chris Eubank. The thing is, he's turned down bags of Hamza Shearer's fight. He's turned down world title fights against the unified champion Johnny Beck. He's been waiting around for the Conor Benn fight. Chris is looking to secure that retirement fund with the Conor Benn fight. So Conor was definitely in his right to push for a rehydration clause. Of course he was. Chris can't make that type of money without taking major risks. Erislandy Lara? Does anyone really believe Chris is going to fight Erislandy Lara? For what would be mere crumbs. Riyadh season ain't interested in no Erislandy Lara fight. And I tell you what, his dad doesn't like the Conor Benn fight, and it's more than what Senior is saying. Senior is saying, oh, my son is a 168 pounder. He shouldn't be fighting at 160. It's more than that. I heard Senior say, Conor is dangerous. Leave Junior alone. And he's getting some energy from his fights with Conor's dad. And there's something spooking him about that energy for his son. I don't know what it is, but we'll see when they fight. Could be nothing. Eddie Hearn reckons Terence Crawford will weigh in around 164 against Canelo. But he'll be giving away around a stone. Canelo will probably come in around 183, 184. Conor, he'll probably come in around 158 against Eubank. And Eubank with a rehydration clause, maybe 168, 170 max.
Something's come up, and I know a lot of people have been talking about it, and I'm going to ask you about it because you are Chris Eubank Jr.'s manager. Obviously, he's a 160 fighter, and we've heard that there's going to be 2 weigh-ins, and one of the weigh-ins is 170 pounds. People are calling it rehydration clause, people are calling it a same-day weigh-in, and I'm going to lay it out. Conor Benn is coming up. He wants the fight. So why has a £170 limit been put on it? And then you can argue either way that, well, why has Chris Eubank Jr. accepted £170? There's 2 ways that you can look at this. Yeah. But your team, Chris Eubank Jr., I need to know, what is it from his side?
First of all, Conor Benn is coming up 1 weight class. And he probably walks around 170 odd anyway. I keep hearing some people saying, what is it, a clause or is it a second day weigh-in? It's a clause because it's in the contract and there's penalties if you're over the weight.
Oh, there's a penalty written?
There's penalties if he's weighing more than 170 on the second day. So it is a clause. It's not a second day weigh-in. If you guys want to make it just a second day weigh-in, take out the contract and we'll just weigh in on the second day and just see where everyone's at. There's a clause in the contract. The reason why they did that is because if they didn't, Chris will brock him up.
In this game, you need to be able to put them away. Brock them up.
So from their side, they're trying to think, how can we even the playing field here? That's how. Me personally, the way that Conor Benn has been like rooting for this fight, I can do this to you, I'm going to knock you out, I'm going to do this, but you're not allowed to be more than 170 on the second day. Like, come on, bro, if you want to fight, let's just fight. I ain't heard Crawford say to Canelo, I want to fight you at 168, but we need to do rehydration clause. I didn't see Kell Brook fight Golovkin and say, I'll fight you at 160. They just fought.
Big up to Elliot, big up to October Red. But Elliot was wrong. There was a rehydration clause in Brook versus Golovkin.
And also, don't forget, when Kell Brook went up to fight Gennady Golovkin at middleweight, guess what? There was a hydration clause, with the IBF. And Gennady Golovkin makes it absolutely easily, as will Chris Eubank.
But one thing I do agree with Elliot, in hindsight, is Conor has been doing a lot of talking. He's been saying, I'm going to knock you out, I'm going to spark you out, which is all good. But if you're going to go there with that level of confidence, why would he need a rematch clause? So I do agree with that. I don't agree with Elliot when he said Chris agreed to the rehydration clause for the fans. That's some bullshit. He did it.
Because it's all for the money.
Great stuff, Elliot. October Red, full video in the subscription box. It's a very good one. So like I said earlier, I don't believe Chris was ever going to fight Erislandy Lara. Just like I don't believe that Conor was ever going to fight Mario Barrios. Both of them are using Lara and Barrios as leverage to say, if you keep demanding and demanding extra concessions on weight, money, etc., etc., I'm going to walk away. Who would a rehydration clause affect? Conor is not coming up 2 weights like Eddie Hearn is saying. His last fight was at 150. The fight before that was at 153. I bet he struggled to make 150 against Dobson. That's another reason the Barrios fight was unlikely to happen. In 1 calendar year, you're talking about if the middleweight fight falls through at 160, regardless if there's a rehydration clause or not, if it falls through, you're going to boil down to 147 in a couple of months or whatever time period and fight Barrios. Nah, man, I ain't buying it. He hasn't fought at 147 since December 2021. That's a long time. We'll have to see what the size difference and the conditions around the fight. 10-pound rehydration, Conor jumping up to fight the first bona fide middleweight of his career, who will be more negatively impacted by the conditions. There's a good chance that's going to be a huge potential deciding factor. Conor Benn, 28, not exactly a kid. He may well be the fresher man in there. Then again, he doesn't have the experience and has not fought the same level of fighter as Chris. But at 35, is Chris still the same fighter? Is there signs of wear and tear? Is he as hungry?
Boxing. Beats and rhymes. No one can do it better.
Good luck to Errol Spence, actually. They say he's going to challenge Erislandy Lara for that middleweight title. Good luck. You're going to need it. 3 fights in the last 6 years for Errol. 3 fights in the last 6 years. One of them was against Danny Garcia. And I had that fight around 8-4 in Errol's favour. But Garcia got to the final bell comfortably. You saw what happened to Danny when he challenged Erislandy Lara last year. Errol isn't going to do much better than that. Trust me. If one of the sanctioning bodies wouldn't justify Errol Spence fighting Fundora at 154, how are the WBA going to justify him fighting Erislandy Lara at 160? The Crawford fight was July 2023. The exercising of the rematch clause never panned out because Errol is too damaged, but too proud to admit this. The time limit ran out for Errol to exercise the rematch clause. Crawford is now doing deals with the Saudis and has won another title since then at another weight. Errol's tried to make this Fundora fight unsuccessfully how many times? The WBO spelt out he's never fought at 154, inactivity, he was knocked out in his last fight, they won't sanction the fight. Fundora's moving on, apparently. Well, I'm not so sure. Fundora just waiting around for Errol Spence. And now, if it's true, they're talking about an Erislandy Lara fight, the same thing's going to happen. And he would probably just be better off retiring. And when I say that, if he's planning to come back, get yourself together and then come back. But this phase of botched attempts to make fights, he himself coming on Twitter when people are expecting the Fundora fight, having to shut down the speculation, saying he hasn't heard from the PBC or nobody. I won't say it's going to overshadow his career, but at this point, he doesn't have a career. And he's got nothing to be embarrassed about. He's had a good career, but you can't enjoy people mocking his attempts to make these fights in the last year and a half since the Crawford beating. Just step back, and when you're ready to get back in the ring, you'll get back in the ring. Anyone who's followed the channel long enough knows I'm not into making videos telling boxers to retire. Never have been. And he's not ready to walk away. That's his decision. Not with Derek James, no more for the last year or so. So even if he is working with a new coach, he hasn't had a fight to try out anything they've been practicing. It's going to be very hard for Errol to be at the level he once was. It's going to be very hard. He doesn't necessarily have to come back at the same level he was in his prime to be functional in the ring. But like I said, I don't advocate on a soapbox who should retire from the ring or not on the strength of free will, which is very important to me. But surely if he can't get it together this year, he'll have to consider his options. And it's kind of like the PBC or those who represent the Errol Spence brand, they're still in denial that he could be a shot fighter. And they're not telling him, because perhaps they're dependent on that Errol Spence paycheck, or they're yes men or yes women. They're not telling him that, yo, either get back in the ring or get the fuck out. Gotta be real with this guy.
Boxing. Beats and rhymes. No one can do it better.
Shaquille Thompson, 13-0, 9 inside the distance, 27 years of age. He hails from Sheffield, Yorkshire, United Kingdom. In all truth, I don't know much about Shaquille. He fights on GBM, promoted by Isra Azif. They're talking about him getting a title shot against unified middleweight champion, 16-0, 11 inside the distance, Janibek Alimkhanalai, for this spring in Kazakhstan. How is this going to work then? Because I looked through all the sanctioning bodies thoroughly, meticulously, and I can't see Shaquille ranked in the top 15 of any of them. What, are both belts going to be on the line? Shaquille hasn't even won a British title, a Commonwealth title. I know he's unbeaten and he's done a great job, him and Izzy. Don't want to downplay that, but challenging for 2 world titles. What happened to Denzel Bentley? Wasn't he supposed to have a rematch with Alimkhanalai? What's going on? I hope Shaquille does the business and brings the belts back if he gets the fight. Because in all truth, I never jumped on this Janibek bandwagon. I never did. I remember a lot of people were saying he was the most avoided, he was the new Triple G. But apart from being undefeated and having a couple of straps, I'm not feeling that aura. Ironically, the person who did avoid him actually gave up his strap to avoid Janibek as a mandatory, Demetrius Andrade. You have to wonder, wouldn't Andrade still a good chance of beating this guy? The good thing about the internet, if you're prepared to do the research, you get some very interesting statistics. Baldy Boxing tells us the combined record of all Shaquille Thompson's 13 opponents equates to 153 wins, 325 losses, 26 draws. He says, is this what it takes to earn a world title shot these days? You guys need to lay off the Conor Benn Eubank fight. There's a lot worse stuff going on. Let me tell you that now. You know what I mean? Lay off the Eubank Benn fight and the undercard. Lay off that. Yeah? If you're really serious about boxing and you want to break down some weak shit, cherry pick some fighters who are mismatched, it's out there. You know, it's not like you have to have a degree in boxing news or anything like that. It's right there.